We're talking to Vice Mayor Howard Gentry Jr. And of course, Mayor, before we had our first commercial break, you were talking about some of your experiences, and I think we sort of got tied around you selling cars. But again, let's pick up at that point and to explain to us some of the things that you've been involved with.
Well, of course, and we did in the last segment, and that was just a time in my life where I became aware that I could sell. I could actually sell, but I also experienced people trusting me and believing me because I tried to tell the truth. I tried to do it the right way, and people believed me and in turn bought my product. Well, my life moved on. I went to law school at the Nashville School of Law, and while I was in law school, TSU called and offered me an opportunity to come to work there as Director of Development. And so I had been working in the courts for Judge Schreiber as a law clerk and a court officer, and he told me I should go. And so I went and spent 15 wonderful years there as an employee and had the opportunity to serve in many positions, Executive Director of the TSU Foundation, Athletics Director, Assistant Vice President for Development, Associate Vice President for Technology and Administrative Services, and it was just a very awesome time there. And that's over the period of years I developed. And then all of a sudden, I had this desire to do more. I wanted to serve the public in a way to the maximum of my ability. And I actually truly felt that politics locally was a way to do it. And so I ran for councilman at large, and I won a historic race. Carolyn Tucker and I were the first African Americans to win. And then I was the chair of the Budget and Finance Committee my second year, and then I ran for President Pro Tem in my third year, and I was successful. And then all of a sudden, circumstances occurred where I became Vice Mayor Pro Tem, and I served that for a year. Then I had to run for the office, had a very tough race against two of my colleagues. I was able to win the vice mayor's race. In the next term that I ran, I had no opposition. And so I'm in my last term now. And as circumstances have it, Mayor Purcell has announced that he is not going to run a third term. And so I was looking at it very seriously, and he came to me and told me that he was not going to run a third term, and then I determined that it was time for me to take that next step, and that's where I am.
And that is truly a historic step in the city of Nashville, too. And I think you've already mentioned how Nashville has changed over your long life. Speak to that, some of the things, because the very fact that you and Ms. Tucker were successful in those positions, it indicated something then at that time about Nashville, period.
You know, I don't dwell on it, but it's just a fact, and especially during this period of the year. You know, life for a guy that looked like me, as I stated earlier, wasn't always the greatest. We had a town, a city that was segregated. We had a city that maybe not as bad as others, but still discriminated against people of the African American descent, and it was not fun. It was not fun during those periods. But you know, I told you that it was a blessing that I grew up on TSU's campus because I had my own little city to grow up on. But the reality is that there were times that I went to the courthouse. I'll never forget going to the Capitol and seeing colored and white bathrooms and saying, my goodness, I can't even go to the bathroom that the governor uses, and to go to the War Memorial Building and have to sit upstairs, and to go to Centennial Park and not be able to go on the side where the lake was and fish in the pond. And you know, when I think about those things, that was pretty bad. But the fact is that even though those things were occurring, in my house, my parents were telling me, times are going to change. At church, my preacher, Kelly Miller Smith, was saying, times are going to change. Our teachers were telling us, you need to read these books, though they're second, third-handed, because the words in these books, though the books are dirty and tattered, these words are golden. And they're the same words that the other kids are reading in the new books. And you need to be prepared to take your rightful place in society when the time comes that society will accept you. Well, of course you don't believe it back in those days, but the fact is that the time did come, and the time has come. And I have been prepared, not just by Tennessee State University, but by this entire city. I have been prepared to take my rightful place, and it's because as I have prepared, Nashville has changed. And Nashville has become now one of the premier cities as it relates to diversity and opening its arms up, not just for African American, but Americans, but people from all nationalities. We have a melting pot here in this city, and though we have a long way to go, we have come a long way, and so it just makes me feel good. It almost makes my parents and my preachers and teachers prophets, because they prophesized this, and they made us wear blinders. They made us forgive. They made us not forget, but forgive, and to not get caught up with that anchor to drag us backwards, but to continue to move forward with hope. And now here we are, and here I am running for mayor, and feel very confident that I have a very legitimate chance of winning this race, because I believe that Nashville has accepted me, Nashville believes in me, and also Nashville is ready.
You know, I'm reminded, as we make preparations for this second commercial break, that I had your father on this show many, many years ago. And one of the things that he talked about was his involvement in transforming Tennessee State University athletics by entering the OVC, and how important that was, and et cetera. And so I indeed understand exactly how you feel and where you're coming from in reference to that. And
well,
so,
I'm blessed to be able to have had a father like my dad, who was a visionary. I'm blessed to still have my mother, who also is a visionary, and to have really experienced these things that I'm experiencing way before I've had this opportunity. So I have grown up with the belief that all of this could occur, because I've seen it happen, and I truly believe it.
Okay, let us take this second commercial break, Mayor, and then we'll come back and have this final segment and give you an opportunity to talk about that and other things. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. This is a profile